Hi, welcome to video B from 2.2. Okay, so this says calculate the x-intercept of the scenario and what does the x-intercept represent in the real world. So first we have to find the x-intercept, and if you remember from the last video, it's wherever 0 equals mx plus b. So we know what mx plus b is, we just need to solve that equation. And then what does it represent in the real world? So we just need to think about what does it mean as an end point. So the x-intercept is usually the end point of any story. All right, so going back and looking at what was our equation, it's negative 25 over 2x plus 425. So we have 0 equals negative 25 over 2x plus 425. And we need to solve for x because we're trying to find the x-intercept. So what is that x where y is 0? When the question ends, what is the amount of minutes? How long until our situation ends? So, okay, sorry about the glitch. There we go. All right, so we have 0 equals negative 25 over 2x plus 25. And our goal is to get x alone. So this is a two-step equation, but it's kind of weird. Maybe it's something that you're not super used to. And so we need to create 0 here because remember, whenever we have a two-step equation, we always want to try and get rid of the addition or subtraction first. So we have negative 425 is equal to negative 25 over 2x. Solving this equation can be kind of tricky, and in the last video I explained a few different ways you can approach this. I'm going to tell you that if you have a fraction being multiplied by a variable that you want to solve for, then you need to multiply by what's called the reciprocal. And essentially what it does is it cancels out and creates 1. So you have 1x, but what you do to one side, you also have to do to the other. So if you, as like me, I'm not really great with mental math, need to use a calculator, feel free. So the reciprocal is 2 over negative 25, and then we're multiplying that by negative 425, and we have 34. So x equals 34, and now we need to think about what does this mean as an end point to our situation. So this is kind of weird, right? So we have an end point where 0 is equal to y. Y has been replaced with 0. So we can say after, and remember this is x, so 34 minutes, the oven is at 0 degrees Fahrenheit. So yes, technically this is correct. When y gets to 0, which is kind of like an endpoint, 0 degrees Fahrenheit is something that you need to understand as a part of the question. After 34 minutes, that's another thing you would need to notice about this question. But I also want you to think about how cold is 0 degrees Fahrenheit? Colder than any kitchen that I've ever been in. So this question is asking, what does it represent in the real world? It doesn't really represent anything in the real world because what they're saying is if the oven continued to decrease in temperature, sure, it would eventually get to 0 degrees Fahrenheit, but really, ovens in our kitchens only ever get down to the temperature in our kitchen, room temperature. So in order to get a really good score on a question like this, you would need to say something like, but it would never get to 0 degrees Fahrenheit, or but the oven would stop cooling after it got to room temperature. Or you could even just say something as simple as, this doesn't make sense because you would never get to 0 degrees Fahrenheit in a kitchen. So sometimes math doesn't make the most sense in the world. sometimes the model that we come up with, where it goes down a certain amount of degrees every minute, only works for a certain amount of time. So this is a lesson for you that sometimes you are smarter than math, but you need to be able to interpret the math problem before you can get smarter than math. Okay, so let's talk about the next part of this question. Again, we need to look at the units when we're given questions like this. It says, what will the temperature be? What will be the temperature of the oven 23 minutes? So 23 minutes is an X value after the oven has been turned off, and we know that it says what will be the temperature, so they're saying what is y equal to. So in the equation, y equals mx plus b, we know that x equals 23. We know m, that we found that at the beginning, it's negative 25 over 2. We know b, we found that at the beginning, 425. But what we don't know is y, because we're trying to find the temperature. Lucky for us, this equation is already solved for y. And let me give you a hack here. Move my bubble. That you can always solve equations that are already solved for y. You can put everything into your calculator all at once. It's super great. I had a student say to me, well, isn't that cheating? And I was like, no, because I taught you a trick, right? I taught you a way to save yourself some time. That's not the same as cheating. It's just being smart. And so now we need to make sure that we interpret this. What does this actually mean? It means that after 23 minutes, and feel free to be lazy. Min is fine. But if you want to be fancy, you could write minutes. The temperature of the oven is 137.5 degrees Fahrenheit. Great. All right. So let's answer another question that has the same format, but it gives you the opposite information. So this says how many minutes, so we're trying to solve for x, and it says, will it take until the temperature cools to 150 degrees in the oven? So we can see that the last question answered was 137.5. So we're a little bit warmer than that. So hopefully it would be less than 23 minutes, just as a way to like gauge what's going on in these questions. So let's figure it out. All right, it says, how many minutes will it take the temperature to cool down to 150? So again, writing out y equals mx plus b, let's plug in the information that we know. We know the temperature is 150, that's our y. We solved for m a long time ago. We know it's negative 25 over 2. The x is what we're solving for. And then we found b was 425 earlier. All right, we are going to solve this. So minus 425 minus 425. Always adding from top to bottom. Again, this is going to be, adding top to bottom. I'm just showing you how to do this on the calculator. If your math skills are not, where you would hope they would be or where they need to be to do this in your head, totally, totally fine. You can use your calculator. Now remember, to cancel out a fraction, we multiply by the reciprocal. So we're just multiplying that by that fraction, but flipped. And what that does is it creates 1x. So we have our fraction 2 over negative 25 multiplied by 275, negative 275. You see it's 22. And we know the units for x are minutes, and it even says how many minutes. So the answer to this is that after 22 minutes, the oven will be at 150 degrees Fahrenheit. Now, do you need to have all of that grammar exactly correct? Do you need to have every sentence written exactly in the right way? No, absolutely not. Most important thing that you get is that 22 minutes, 150 degrees Fahrenheit. So just making sure that you understand that those two numbers go together. They're a coordinate, just like the coordinates that we found at the beginning, but we solved for that coordinate. Oops, okay. So let's talk about Desmos, and I think I went a little too fast through this in the last video because it's running out of time. So I'm going to go a little slower through this. So we're going to bring up Desmos, and I'm going to split screen to use Desmos. And what we're going to do is use the following parameters. So this is something that I didn't talk about enough. Use the following parameters. So parameters are it's just a fancy word for square. Create the correct square for you. So let's get rid of this for a second. We're going to click the wrench. We're going to go down to where this picture is, which is down here. And it says go from -10 to 40. So I'm going to tap here and make it 40. So what that does is it makes the x-axis go from -10 to 40. And then we can see over here it says go from -100 to 1,000. All right. And then a little secret I like to do is click this projector mode. It just makes everything bold and it makes everything look a little bit better. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to put in the equation from part C from last video where it says y equals, and then remember we want to do -25. All you have to do to make a fraction is press the divide button, and then we're going to press the over button and put an x next to it, and then it was plus 425. Oops. 425. And so it says we're going to, that's what we did here, type the equation. Type the two points from part A into the equation. So the 2 points were 10, 300. There's my Minnesotan accent coming out. And we're going to do 14, 250. And I'm going to press the check mark there. So you can see that those 2 points showed up in my Desmos. And so I'm going to get rid of this for just a second so you can see like in a full screen what's going on. I want to get rid of this just so we have oh, look how beautiful this graph is. I love it. Something that we want to double check. Tap here. That's our B value. The y-intercept is the B value. Also, check over here. 34, that's the x-intercept. So, here we go. We're going to take a screenshot. Okay, sorry. Little whoopsie there. So you're going to press the plus sign, and then you're going to add in the screenshot that you just took. Here's your beautiful screenshot, and you're good to go. So my gift to you on your first journey down a linear application problem, your first word problem alone, is I'm going to go to the next problem, which is just on the next page, and I will highlight the X and the Y for you. So it says 80 seconds, that's your X, and it says 27 gallons, that's your Y. And this says 2 minutes, and this says 21 gallons of water. So the hint I'm going to give you is that the first point is 80, 27, but then the second point is 120, 21, because 2 minutes at 60 seconds each is 120 seconds. So that one had a little trick in it. That's my gift to you. Go ahead and crush it. You guys got this. show up to the assignment session on Friday if you need help.